When I released my first book, I remember thinking very heavily about Elon Harris and how he did it, how he managed to reach millions of people around the world through his work, and how I would do it. His readers became my readers. I write because it's my passion. I write with black people on my mind and black gay men in my heart. Toni Morrison gave me the courage to say that out loud.
Yes, I can write about white people. White people can write about black people. Anything can happen in art. There are no boundaries there.
I could write about anything, anyone, but I choose to write about our experience.
And I've spent my entire writing life trying to make sure that the white gaze was not the dominant one in any of my books.
Book of Jewels is my love letter to black people.
It has nothing to do with who reads the books. Everyone, I hope, of any race, any gender, any country.
Book of Jewels is 11 of the biggest life lessons that I've learned to date, and the stories behind those lessons. Book of Jewels is available now on Audible, all e-readers, and Amazon.com. Visit www.craigthewriterstewart.com for more information. This is very personal work for me.
Politics.
I believe I was called to tell my story, use my voice, be a voice for the community, to speak to and for a community of people that's been ignored, denied, overlooked.
Religion.
This is my life's work.
Religion.
I want to use words to uplift, heal, inspire, encourage.
Do something different. Every Monday at 10.
Good day, thinkers, thought leaders, progressives, and dreamers. I'm Craig the Writer Stewart, and this is So Much to Say. These are my thoughts in my voice on black shit, white shit, gay shit, and everything in between. I was just having a random conversation with a friend of mine. He's in town for work, and we were just sitting here talking about anonymous sex. And it's been a very, very, very long time since I utilized the apps, whether it was Jacked or whether it was Adam for Adam or Men for Now, whatever it is. Most recently, we were talking about Jacked, just because that's the premier, I guess, one. Not premier in terms of, like it's some, not in terms of like it's some prestigious place or app, but just because it's the most prevalent, the most popular one. But I was sharing with him that there came a time in my life when, and this was probably about 2005, so about 15 years ago, I remember hooking up with someone that I had met on the app. And part of what I was saying to my friend was, I remember it being it wasn't always about wanting to connect with somebody or have sex. Sometimes it was about a challenge. It was about a conquest. It was about overtaking. It was just about, if I really put my best foot forward, could I get him? Could I conquer him?
Right.
And so we were talking about that earlier today. And then just a few moments ago, just before I said, let's go do a podcast about this, because I really feel like many of you listening could relate to this. And I don't necessarily just mean gay men. It could be heterosexual women,
right,
or heterosexual men that may be listening to this podcast that can relate. But I remember about 2005, I remember hooking up with someone that I wasn't really attracted to, but I was just kind of in the moment, and it was just a matter of the conquer, if you will. It wasn't so much about me being horny. And I remember not being attracted to him, and I remember just engaging with him. And I remember midway through the session, if you will, I remember stopping and saying to him, you know what, I'm good. This isn't really for me. But after the fact, I remember promising myself, or saying to myself, I will never hook up with someone that I'm not really attracted to. I'm not going to just do it just because of the animalistic desire or urge in that moment.
Well, was there any fear when you said no of their reaction? Because everybody's not sane. Like, some people are.
Yeah. No, I was never really concerned about whether or not they were going to act up, because when you and I were having this conversation, I think yesterday, I was telling you, or maybe earlier today, I remember telling you that I had hooked up with this guy. Again, this was many years ago. And I remember thinking, this is not the guy that I saw in the picture. And I literally was standing there in a towel. Like, I was ready to go. Like, when they showed up at my house, I just had a bath towel on. I was ready for action.
Right.
And I remember saying to him, and it was almost like he knew, of course he knew that it wasn't his picture, but it was almost like he was trying to see if I was going to catch on. And he wouldn't really make eye contact with me. And I remember and I write about this in my first book, I was telling you this. And I remember he was trying to take his shoe off without reaching down and actually taking it off with his hand. He was trying to like finagle his foot, and he was using his other foot to like take the shoe off. And I remember saying to him, that's not you in the picture.
Right.
And he didn't look at me. He was still, trying to get his foot off, take his shoe off. He was looking down. And he said, okay, yeah, what about it? I said, I'm not cool with this. And I said, I'm good. I said, you got to go. And as I said to you when I described this, we could have really got into a fight or some shit if he had cut the fuck up. And I'd have been in there fighting him butt ass naked because all I had on was a towel. You know what I'm saying? So it really could have gone left. But no, I didn't really think about, because like I was saying to you just a moment ago, I remember, because it was rare that I went to someone else's house. I always felt more comfortable if I could get comfortable. Right. I felt more comfortable inviting someone to my house or hosting. Those of you that use the app,
do you host or not?
Yeah, do you host or travel?
There it is.
And so I was more comfortable hosting. And then also at the time, call me frugal, but at the time when I was doing all of this hooking up and stuff, gasoline was expensive. And I was not about to burn my gas and come to your house and then get there and then you're not what I thought you were. Yeah. But anyway, I remember going to this particular guy's house one time. This was someone else. And I got to his house and I got to his staircase and I remember he opened the door and I was not attracted to him. And I said to him, you know what, I'm good. And I left. And that became my thing. Like, because if I was not interested or if I was not attracted to you, I was not going to force myself to engage just because I didn't have the courage or the guts to say, you know what, this ain't really for me.
Right.
But a part of why I wanted to have this conversation was not so much to talk about that, but more so to talk about why many of us engage in anonymous sex. Because I don't believe, looking back on my experience with it, and as I was sharing with you, because you were saying to me that I don't know how much you want me to share.
No, that's cool. I think, because I just started reflecting, and I think I'm now getting to the point. I started with anonymous sex probably when I had moved away to go to college in Daytona, and I was about 19 going on 20 maybe.
And you're now 28.
Well, I'm now 28. Actually, it was probably before then because I remember being in Miami and there was BGC.
Black Gay Chat.
Yeah, and so I was on that, and but again, at the young age I was still thinking this is about a relationship. So we're gonna have sex. But then I would try to hold on to those people, and then they would just like tug away eventually, and I would think, 1 month, at least I had a 1 month relationship of what I thought. But I didn't, in the beginning, I think it was more of curiosity. When I got on my own, I got my own place. I had a lot of people over. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like I was.
You had a lot of people over.
I just wanted to. I was like, you don't look like the next. You don't look like the person. Let's see what this is all about. Let's see what that is all about. So I was I went in on it, and I just did it. It was, I think in the beginning, it was a little curiosity.
Right. But one of the things that I was saying to you a moment ago, too, was I think that oftentimes gay men participate in this behavior online or, wherever. Even if it's Instagram, it may not even be Jacked or one of these apps. I think sometimes we participate in it because of boredom. It's not always that we're looking for sex. I think sometimes it's boredom and you just kind of fall over into the casual thing. Sometimes it is.
I think I would say that it did get to that point.
Yeah.
And you were comfortable with it already, and so.
Yeah, you become comfortable with it. Because one of the things that I was saying to you a moment ago, too, was there were times that I would try to familiarize myself with the person. Because random sex was just not a part of my DNA. I got comfortable with it to a degree.
Right.
But it was never really germane to who I am, because I got to a point where I would sit there and try to have a conversation with them,
Right.
you know, this perfect stranger, so that I could kind of get myself psyched up to doing it. And then I remember there were instances where I would no longer be hard. I would become flaccid. Like my dick would not be hard.
Right.
Like I would be sitting there trying to have a conversation because I would just be so in my head. Like I would be so in my head. Like midway through the activity, I would be somewhere in my head thinking to myself, Craig, this is not even who you are.
Right.
You know, or Craig, do you understand the risk that you're putting yourself in? Not even just in terms of an STD or an STI, but just in terms of my personal safety.
Right.
You know, more times than not, I invited the person to my house, but still, I didn't know if they had a weapon. You know, there were instances that I traveled to somebody's house. I didn't know if they had 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other people locked away in the closet, waiting for me to get undressed and to gang rape me or whatever. So, like, I think that sometimes, and I think that probably happens more times than not, I think there are a lot of men who, and I'm just specifically talking about gay men right now. I know that that's not just our experience, but I'm sure that there are a lot of men who engage and they really do feel foreign. They really do feel out of character participating in some of this behavior, but they go along with it just because.
Right. And I think it goes deeper, because like after I had moved from Jack, there was this thing called Craigslist, and they kind of changed it a little bit, but Craigslist had a personal section. And I think it was like a task for me back then, and I mean, I'll say it, but I kind of feel bad about saying it. It was an experience where I would be on there, but my goal was to get the straight men.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Like,
what do you mean it was your goal? Why did you think that they were straight?
Well, I knew they were straight. I knew they were straight because of the section they were looking at.
And so you would go into the section where the men were looking for women, and how would you try to lure them in?
So I would put up a post, and it would just be general. Like, it wouldn't say if I were male or female. And they would contact me thinking I was a woman because it wasn't, and then I would immediately say, "I'm so sorry. You know, I realized it was the wrong section."
Oh. And so how many men went along and said, "Oh no, it's cool"?
95%.
Said, "Oh no, it's okay."
Yes. Said, I would say something on the lines of, "I'm so sorry. I was looking for a,
bisexual guy or gay guy.
Looking for." And I was like, okay, so. And so the danger that I didn't realize, because I mean they would come in and some of them would have rings on their fingers and.
And I mean they literally could have set you up. They literally could have been like, "Oh, okay," and then when you got there or when they came to you, they could have literally just.
But I don't know, because I was in that cycle for about 2 years. I don't know what kept me there. I don't know if it was.
Well, because again, this conversation, this podcast was really organic. This was really born out of just conversations that you and I have been having this whole weekend, because you were sharing with me that, you're on Jacked and you're on Grindr, and I said to you that it's interesting that you're sharing this with me, because I was just literally thinking the other day. Because for those of you who don't know, I've been sharing this on my Facebook Live and my Instagram Live. I mean, Facebook and YouTube Live. That I've been celibate. I've been celibate for some time now. And I was saying to you, in the wake of you sharing with me about, your Grindr and your Jacked experiences, that I'm so grateful that I'm not in that space anymore. Because I remember being in that space, and I remember getting back in that rat race, if you will, as a result of a breakup. It was almost like I would go through a breakup, and that would trigger me to go back to that kind of thing. It was almost like I was searching for something. It was almost like a validation kind of thing for me. And I remember thinking during one of my cycles on those apps, Craig, what are you going to do? Like, is this going to be your reality for the rest of your life? Is this something you're going to be doing in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s? Like, when are you going to have enough of this? Like, when is this going to be enough? And so, interestingly enough, when you mentioned, you just started talking to me about, an experience you had. And I said to you, it's funny that you bring this up because I was just thinking the other day that I have not had a desire to even think about. I haven't even thought about creating an account. I haven't even thought about getting back in that rat race. And what I said to you was, you have to get to the core of why you're on there. What is it that you're searching for? Because it's almost like you're in search of satisfaction. And I'm not saying just you in particular. The case was true for me too when I was on there. I never had a Grindr account, but it was like I had the jack, and there was a time where I had multiple interfaces, and you have to kind of figure out what you're looking for, because it really is kind of endemic of what a lot of gay men, I'm not going to say all because I'm not on any of the apps, and I know a lot of you listening are not on any of those apps, but when I think about the people that I know that are on Jack, they're also on Grindr, or they're also on something else, or you know what I'm saying? So it's like the question becomes, what is it that you're looking for? And that's really what you have to kind of get to figure out. What is it that you're searching for on those apps? Because for me, part of it was, as I said a moment ago, it was a quest. It was almost like a challenge, like, oh, let me see if I can get him. And then part of it was attached to a depression that I was experiencing. And that depression that I was experiencing was attached to a stall in my career or a stall in my finances at that time. But I really do believe that once you get to the root of why you're doing it, you can walk away from it without ever looking back again. But you got to give yourself the time to sit and really process it and think about why you're doing it.
Yeah. And I don't know, because at first I'm like, well, maybe it's because I used to do the same thing where if I wasn't in a relationship, then that's when I was doing it. But then I caught myself, like, as time went on and, I had a good relationship.
And you were still dipping.
That was when I was doing the Craigslist thing.
Really?
And they actually found out about it.
Wait. They or he?
He, sorry. Yeah, thank you for correction. He found out about it.
Communication is our partner. Clarity is our friend. So your partner found out.
My partner at the time found out about it. We were on the same phone bill, and I was...
is this the one you were telling me about today that did something to your clothes?
No, that is not the one.
Oh, somebody else.
That's the one that the one that lives here.
Okay. And so did you ever figure out why you were looking for something outside of your relationship?
No, I mean, in the time, like the partner I was with, he wasn't as sexual. I don't know. He's not a sexual person. Right. He's like, maybe he could be asexual or something like that.
So when you were with him, you were actually finding people on Craigslist and actually engaging.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna go deeper, but
go ahead.
I just
this is so much to say.
It is, and it was bad.
What do you mean it was bad?
I was, bringing people into the home.
Y'all lived together?
Yes, we did.
And you were bringing people to the house while he was at work?
He worked overnight. Well, during the night.
Did he ever catch you other than seeing it on your phone?
No, he saw the phone bill and saw that I was contacting people, but he doesn't know this part. I came clean about talking to the people, but I didn't tell him that I actually met up with the people.
In your home?
In different places, a lot of places.
Right.
One time I even drove 30 minutes from my home.
And see, that's the thing. And again, because there are degrees to this.
Yeah.
And so for me, I never put my livelihood at risk. But I know people who, like, for example, I used to live in California, and I remember talking to a guy, and I remember him telling me, he's a teacher, and I remember him telling me that he knew that he was addicted when he tried to drive an hour during a 30-minute lunch break to hook up with somebody.
Wow.
And he knew he was going to be late trying to get back to school. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I was just like, really? And this is not a judgment just because I didn't do that, but because
it gets to that point.
It can get to that point.
Get to that point.
You know, if you're not careful, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And I remember like connecting with a guy on it wasn't Jack, because Jack didn't exist at the time. It was Adam for Adam, I'm sure it was.
Wow.
And I remember this particular guy worked at a hotel overnight, and he invited me to the hotel, and you know, he told me to come into the front desk, and he was going to give me the room key, and I go to a certain room key. Just so happened, when I got to the front desk, I wasn't attracted to him. So I got back on my broomstick, and I hit it. You know, I left.
Yeah.
But my point is, here you are at work.
Yeah.
And you're willing to risk your livelihood.
Yeah, I had
for a hookup.
Yeah. I had the same hotel worker, had a girlfriend that was pregnant. And I went to the counter, got the key, went to the room.
Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, it was a hotel worker. Same thing. He was like, come to the hotel. He met me outside with the key though.
And he had a girlfriend that was pregnant.
Mm-hmm. So he was doing it while she was pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, there's so many stories. So many. I mean, I've had, yeah.
But, you know, I have to say, you know, just thinking back, you know, during the time where that I was, you know, online and meeting people on the apps and that kind of thing, I took risks.
Yeah.
You know, and when I look back, I think about the chances that I took. You know, inviting strangers to my house. I was sharing with you a moment ago that I've only... And I used to lie to myself and say, well, I've never had a threesome because nothing ever really popped off. But it was a threesome.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a couple. They were in a relationship. And it was I was right after a breakup that I had. This was back in 2005. And it was right after a breakup. And I remember thinking to myself and saying to myself, Craig, if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. Go ahead and do it. And I remember inviting them to my house because I felt more comfortable with them coming to my house. And I had them come over. And I remember we, you know, started getting into it. And, you know, but again, the whole time my mind was just racing and going. And I was just saying to myself, like, Craig, this isn't even who you are. Like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't you. And I remember stopping in the middle of the whole thing and saying, you know what? I'm good. Like, I don't want to do this, you know, because I just believe in, again, just like I'm not going to hook up with somebody that I'm not attracted to. Like at that time,
right.
I'm not saying currently, but like at that time, I made a promise to myself that if it was somebody that I wasn't attracted to, once they showed up at my house or once I showed up at their house, I wasn't going to just force myself just because I was there.
Right.
And so in this particular instance with the threesome, I was just like, listen, I don't want to do it. And I stopped and I sent them on their way. I escorted them out of my house and that was it.
Yeah. I think I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of tired of it, but I just keep doing it. And I haven't gotten to the point where I could say like stop. Like if I'm in the motion of it and I start to get flaccid or not hard anymore, you know, I'll try to think of someone that I'm really attracted to in the moment to, you know, get me back to where I was. Because I'm now afraid of, because before, I mean, I've had a threesome in the woods. Like, you know,
really?
Yes, in the woods. I've had a threesome. I brought 2 people back to my hotel room. So that was the only 2 experiences I had that were threesome.
They knew each other?
The 2 people know. Yeah, okay. I didn't know that at the time, though. It was like they were trying to plan something. And I guess they wanted to use my room, and then I just happened to be there. So I got in on the action.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am right now. I don't know what gets me to, even though I'm like, oh, I'm tired of it. The first thing I think about is when I get in my comfort zone, I'm just going to scroll and look. And I think a little bit of it is wanting that relationship again, Like, I want to have that one person, because I'm the corny one on the app now that actually wants to have a conversation. Or one. I remember back in the day, I used to laugh at people that came in my room and they would be like, "Hey, my name is," and I'm like, let's just do what we doing. Like, we don't need an introduction. But now I find myself trying to have a conversation with people, and they like, "Look, are we gonna do this or not?" Like, everybody wants to move on.
And I had this conversation with someone recently, and I was saying to them that the apps, it may have been you, the apps were not designed, Jacked in particular, was not designed to hook up.
Right.
That's just what we reduced them to. We've chosen to reduce it to just sex.
Right.
But I've said this for some time now. I really do believe that the apps really could be an amazing way to network. It could be an amazing platform to date and connect and build. Right. But we choose to reduce them to just sex. But I just think that if we, so I do think that it's an opportunity where people can meet and date, but we don't go that route. Now, do you think that, because I do believe that people who approach dating on those apps are in the anomaly, do you think that the chances are in your favor or against you to find a partner? Because the majority of the people go to the app looking for just sex. They're not looking for partnership.
Right. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, so every once in a while you'll come across one that's like worth it and it actually works out, but then it goes for some months and it just stops happening. But I think because you hit those potholes where you find the same person that's like yourself, and I think you don't want to believe that you're the only one out there that wants that.
And that's true. But what happens is, what I've learned in the experiences that I've had with the apps is that you're not the only one that's looking for more than sex. But the majority of the people that go to those apps aren't looking for relationships. They're going there specifically just for that moment.
Especially at 2 in the morning.
Especially at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And then I've learned that the way that people approach you on those apps are very different from how they'll approach you in a Target or at a house party or at...
But will they approach you at Target?
Well, that's the other part.
Because that's not common.
But here's the thing. Here's what I know to be true. When you meet somebody on the app, they make the effort, more times than not, they make the effort to be secretive, to be elusive, to give you DJ. Like, well, what's your name? They're going to give you DJ. Where if I met you at a house party or something, you're going to tell me your name is Andre.
Right.
More than likely. Or, if we're talking on the app and we are just trying to get to know each other and we're just talking and I say, "Oh, so what kind of work do you do?" "Oh, I'm in HR," or I'm in the healthcare industry. Like, they're going to be so general. But if I met you, the same person at a house party face to face, you're going to say, "Oh, I work, for such and such." More times than not. But it's like we create these additional barriers online. And so that's what I'm saying. It almost positions you to just be there for sex, right? Because you don't. It doesn't lend itself. The app doesn't. I won't say that the app doesn't lend itself to building, but the way that we approach each other on those apps, and then also it's like,
because the app is more. You don't know about the update, but the app is more leaning towards trying to get people to say more about them and not be as elusive or whatever. So they have it where they're trying to amp you, like, please put more information about yourself and things like that. They're trying to make it a more dating versus sex.
Right.
But
and so I just think that I really do think that it's really about how we choose to use the app as opposed to what the intention was behind the app when it was created. I won't necessarily say that. I wouldn't necessarily say that the app was created for the purpose of just hooking up. I just don't believe that. Now, granted, because even when you think about the apps, supposedly you're not supposed to have a public nude picture.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if it was geared specifically for sex, then they would allow you to just have nude pictures up there. But they supposedly you're not supposed to have nude pictures up there, publicly anyway. But back to the whole part about this anonymous sex thing and just using the apps, I really do think that there are people that get trapped, they get stuck. So what do you think you're going to do to be different, to do things differently? Because you're on the app now and you're using the app now. I don't know if you want to share your experience that you had this weekend. And in particular, because you know, you had to work the next day. And you were out frolicking at 4 in the morning.
Yes.
4 something in the morning.
That's an addiction.
And what time did you have to be to work?
So I got back to my hotel at, I think it was around 9 o'clock. And I scrolled the app.
You got back to the hotel at 9?
9 p.m. So I'm talking, I was at work.
Okay.
And then I got to the hotel. So from 9 p.m. to about 4 o'clock
a.m.
Right, and that's when I was scrolling the app from 9 p.m. to
So you
4.
were up from 9 p.m.
I was
You
up.
had been at work all day that day. Mm-hmm. And you were scrolling on it. And see, that's where they're addictive. And I remember that. I remember that time so well because, and I write about it very, very candidly in my first book. It's just like, I remember spending the entire day at home because I wasn't working a full-time job. And I remember being at home and just the day would be gone because I had spent the entire day. Because again, this is before Jacked and all of that. And I remember being on Adam for Adam or Men for Now, whatever it was at the time. And I remember being at my desktop the entire day. And I remember friends calling me and saying, hey, let's meet for drinks or let's go to dinner. And I remember sometimes turning them down because I didn't want to break away from the computer. Right. Or if I did break away from the computer, I remember leaving the computer up so that the app would still be going. And so then when I would come back, I would have multiple messages. But I would be so ready to get away from them. I'd be ready to leave my friends to get back home so that I could continue surfing because I was on a quest. Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's not always just about a sexual addiction. Sometimes it's just about you're just drawn to you know, the being on the app itself. So it was 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and
when you got home.
And so I didn't start talking to him until about 3:30
a.m.
And so we started talking around 3:30, and we just, you know, the regular thing. What do you do for work and different things like that. And so then he just started to it turned sexual. And he was like, you know, at first he was like, I'm a little tired, but then around 4 o'clock he was like, I want to do this tonight. Oh, right now. It was morning actually. So
and so then you got in your rental car.
Yeah.
And you drove to his neighborhood, to his place.
It was about 7 minutes away.
And he said that he lived alone. Mm-hmm. But when you got there, you felt like there was somebody else that lived there.
I kind of feel like somebody else.
Because there was another toothbrush.
Yeah, I didn't actually see the bathroom, but the picture he sent me had another toothbrush in where the bathroom he was. There was 2 toothbrushes in the cup holder. Could have been a visitor, I don't know, but it just struck me or whatever. And
then you also said that you noticed like garments or something, a woman's garments or something.
I don't know I don't think I noticed garments. I just know the toothbrush for sure.
Okay. And then you said he had a dog. He had this huge dog.
Which he told me about beforehand.
And so you got there, and he said he had to put the dog away.
No, the dog was already away.
The dog was away when you got there. But then when you guys hooked up and did your thing, and then you were about to leave out, he said, well, wait, I need to let... No. When you were going into the room to hook up with him, he said, well, let me go let the dog out.
Yeah, because he wanted
So you were in the room safely.
I'm like...
And it was a huge dog.
It was a huge, like, pit. It was pit mixed with whatever gets bigger than a pit.
Probably a mastiff.
Right. So it was like a pit, but he had a big head, and his head was huge. And so it was enough for me. He was black.
Oh, God. And see, and I said to you, what if this nigga was a psycho, and once you got in the room...
All of that ran through my head. I'm sitting there, and I have my shoes, everything was still on, and I'm sitting there listening because I'm like, is this dude
about to open up the bedroom door and let this dog... Because where were you going to go?
Nowhere. The window, nowhere.
And so that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's what I mean about personal safety. Like, we put ourselves at risk, and I do not miss those days at all.
I mean, I remember my heart, and then so finally when he came in, I was like, that was one relief. Like, he really is just probably a dog lover and didn't want the dog caged up during that whole time. Mm-hmm.
So he let the dog out while, you know, before he came into the room to join you. Mm-hmm. And then once you guys were done, he went
and let the dog.
put
the dog back up.
He put the dog back up so that you could leave. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be completely honest with you right now. Part of what helped me come off of those apps was self-actualization. Like I just started thinking about like why was I really doing it, and what was the real reason behind it, and just being exhausted behind the whole thing, and just feeling like this isn't what I want to do on a consistent basis. Like I want to be done with this. But also, I started to get recognized quite a bit. There would be people like, aren't you the guy that,
right.
I have your book or your books. And, it just became that kind of thing. And so I was just like, okay, yeah, this is too much.
Yeah.
And so that kind of helped push me. It helped to encourage me to get off of those apps and to leave those apps alone. But then there were other things as well, because again, like I said, I just realized how fortunate I had been to never have any sort of an incident happen, or to never have contracted any sort of STD or STI. You know what I mean? So it just became a thing where I just started to count my blessings and I just walked away from it and just haven't looked back. But I think, as I was saying to you the other day, I think with you really got to get to the base of why you do it. Why do you think you do it? Because I don't think that it's part and parcel of being gay. I really don't think that that's just something that everybody does. I don't believe that. I don't subscribe to that. I really do think that there's a method to the madness for each of us. And you have to figure out why you do it. I want you to share the story. You said that you were traveling. I think you said you were in Texas, maybe. And
no, I was in Maryland.
You were in Maryland. And there was a guy that you met on the app, and you said he was so nice looking. He was gorgeous. He had a great body.
Yeah.
But you could not perform because you were just so in your head. Yeah. And I was sharing with you that I'd had that experience as well. There was a guy that I met. He was absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful teeth, beautiful body. But it was one of those instances where I was in my head as well. Not to mention he had a roommate, and he was telling me to be really quiet. And I was just so... And he was like, the roommate didn't know that he was gay. And, and I remember just feeling like I was on edge. And so... And for me... Kissing is very important for me to be aroused, and he wasn't really into kissing and his thing, and I think that was kind of a part of his discomfort or his issues around his sexuality, and he didn't really want to kiss, and so it was hard for me to really get aroused in the moment. And so he thought that it was because he thought I wasn't aroused because I wasn't attracted to him. And he kept saying, well, is it me? Is there something wrong with me? And I was just like, no, it's not you. And you had a similar experience.
Yeah, he actually was saying some of the same things. He walked into the room and he went into the bathroom, looked at himself in the mirror, and he just started. And in the moment, I'm just like, how did I get... I'm thinking like, I'm lucky tonight. Like, this is it. I'm about to get down. So we started, and he was okay with kissing, and we just started. And about halfway through, down his body, I realized that I was still not, there. I wasn't excited. My dick was not hard. And so I was, he went down and he went to give me head, and it wasn't working.
So what do you think it was, looking back? Because I know what it was for me.
I was in my head. I was thinking about just a lot of stuff, and
like what?
I was thinking about him, and then like, oh my God, why is he here, and why is he doing this? Doesn't he have a boyfriend? And he looks so good. And then I started thinking about myself, and I'm you know this. I'm fast with it. So I'm like, oh my God, could this be the one? And could you know what I'm saying? Are we gonna get in a relationship? And I think all of that. And then what happens is when I first find out that I'm not hard and that I'm not getting there, now that is in my head. And so I could not stop thinking about how embarrassed I was now that I could not. And he was like, oh my God, is it me? And I kept saying, no, now that I'm never going to get hard now because that was in my head.
And see, for me, it's a little different. For me, I'm in my head thinking, this is so out of character for you, Craig.
Yeah, sometimes
that's what it is.
That wasn't for that situation.
Yeah. I'm never thinking like, oh, could this be the one? Or could this? Yeah, I'm not thinking about that. For me, it's like, how did you end up here?
Yeah.
Like, what's really going on with you, inside of you?
That was me 3 days ago.
Yeah.
2 days ago.
That you are here with a perfect stranger that you've met. And you're engaging in a sexual act with someone that you know nothing about.
Right.
You don't know his name. You don't know if the name that he gave you is his real name.
Right.
You don't know anything about his personality. You don't know him. And you're engaging in something so personal with someone that you don't know.
Yeah.
But let's go even deeper than that, because, and I'm going to be completely honest, once again, in those instances, there were times that I put my personal safety at risk, because you and I have had conversation about condom usage and not using condoms. And there were instances where you shared with me that you didn't always use a condom. And most of the time I did not. I can count on, I've had so many sexual experiences, but I can count on one hand, and it's probably like the 3 fingers how many times I've used a condom. And what do you think that is?
At first I said it was the feel, like I don't like the feel of it. I've never, anytime I've used a condom, it's because they had it. Like
they suggested using it.
Yeah, I've never purchased condoms or whatever. And I don't know if it's I think that I don't think that I can't get, that nothing can happen to me. I don't like the feeling of it, and I think it takes away from the intimacy of it. But again, I know how risky it can be because I don't just have one partner, and even if you have one partner, but I don't know what it is. But I remember you having a live about this conversation and how hard you guys were on the live, and you were like, if you're just not using a condom, I can't remember who was the guest, but it was it's just something and it was like but it was hurtful to me because I knew that I was that guy, and I was just like, well, but they don't understand. Like, it's not like I want it. Like, I understand it's reckless, but it's just something that I don't know. It's like an addiction. You just.
And here's what I'll say, just to be completely transparent and to be completely forthcoming. Because I will never pretend that I've not had unprotected sex. Right. I will not pretend that the only instances that I've had unprotected sex was with someone that I knew intimately, and we had been and had, that we had gone and gotten tested together. That's not the case. And so that's another reason why I'm grateful to have never contracted an STD or an STI, because I know that I'm one bad decision away from making the same bad decision that somebody else made. You know what I'm saying? So there's no difference. It just didn't happen. That just wasn't my story.
Right.
But there were instances, again, where I was in my head and I could not get aroused. And, you go to put the condom on and, you can't really get aroused. Right. But you can magically become aroused without that condom. Like, yeah. Sometimes by the time you try to roll that condom on, you've gone flaccid again.
Now you're in your head.
Now you're in your head again. Okay, I'm about to roll.
But
then there are instances where you can just go straight into it. Here's the other instance. There were instances where, and this is not just for anonymous sex. There were instances, and I would have the conversation. And I would say, and again, you're only going off of what the person tells you, because you don't know this person, so you don't know if they're telling you the truth or not.
Right.
And you're like, well, have you been tested? When were you tested? What were your results? Like, you can ask all of those things, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be forthcoming. But there were also instances where it was somebody that I knew. I'm not talking about just being online. There were instances where I was connecting with someone that I knew, and we got into the heat of the moment. And I remember not stopping to go and get the condom, because I knew that if I stopped, there was a chance that he could say, no, I don't want to do it yet. Let's just wait. But because we were both in the moment, it was like I was able to just slip right in without the condom. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were just both passionate. The dick was there. It was right on top of you. You know what I'm saying? So I just went on and slid in.
Right.
Because I knew that if I stopped to go and get that condom, there was a chance that you could say, well, no, Craig, I want to wait.
Right.
I don't want to do it today. Let's just wait another time. Let's get to know each other. I didn't want to run the risk of that. And so there were instances that I would go in without thinking about it. So my question to you, because here's what scared me, and it got me to a place where I became more aware, but I started to think about what my life would look like on the other side of an STD or HIV or whatever it is. I started to think, and like there were literally times that I've like broken into a sweat, heart racing, thinking like, God, just thinking about a previous situation.
That's it.
Yeah, and I don't even mean in terms of like, you know, something like that where I felt like something changed in my body. I'm just saying when I sometimes think about instances where it could have become my reality, like I sometimes, you know.
But I think it is now, because in the beginning, like, you got to remember, I started in high school. So I was in 9th grade, 10th grade. Mm-hmm. And I was in 10th grade. And I started, we didn't have, you know, being that young, we just didn't have nobody telling us about it. And you just start doing it. And you're doing it, and it becomes second nature, becomes comfortable with it. That's how you want to do it. This is how I started off doing it. That's what I want to do.
But what's the lie that you tell yourself to make yourself comfortable with continuing to do it?
There's not a lot. I think because I don't see the bad part. Like right now, HIV is not, like when I was growing up, it was more AIDS and.
Is that the lie that you tell yourself?
Yes. And so
what's the finish?
So when I was growing up, AIDS, you can see AIDS and you think, oh, AIDS is bad. People are dying from it. You know what I'm saying? But now you have the HIV, and a lot of people, not a lot of people, but people that have it are on their medication. They look healthy. They're managing it, and they're living to be long ages. So I think maybe because I haven't been as close to it. Like I haven't been close to someone who
has HIV or AIDS.
And so I think it's just, I'm probably taking that for granted.
So do you ever consider like what would happen if because I've actually put myself in the position of, if I went to get a test and I imagined the healthcare professional coming in and saying to me, okay, Craig, these are your results. Like, I've literally put myself in that position. Like, what my life would look like from that point forward. Have you ever done that?
I've never gone beyond what my life would look like. I do have, like, I've gotten tested a couple of times, and I do, you know, I'm in that moment, I'm like, oh, God, here we go. But I never think about if this was to happen.
Have you ever wondered if you've actually had unprotected sex with somebody that's HIV positive?
If that person was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because just because you've had unprotected sex with somebody that's positive doesn't mean you had to seroconvert. It's not always that exact.
I could have. It's been a lot. I could have. And that's why I don't think that I'm just this special person or, you know.
So what do you think it's going to take for you to do things differently? And I'm not saying at all that you have to get off of the apps because that's what I've done.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is you have to be very, very... You have to be very, very strategic about how you use them. You have to be very decisive about how you use it, because once I got control of why I was using it, there was a period that I used the app just to promote. I used Jacked in particular to promote my first book. And at one time, I was selling more books on Jacked than I had sold on Amazon.
Right.
But I had a level of control about myself, you know, where I was only on there specifically. And people would get upset with me. And my account had gotten closed many times because there would be people on there who felt like I should have been on there to hook up. There were people who were outraged because I was only there to promote the books, and they would report my page and just all kinds of stuff. And I remember this one guy said to me, he said, listen, I don't come on here for, like, he was really trying to shoot his shot. And I was like, no, I'm just here to sell my books. He said, if I wanted to buy books, I'd go to Barnes & Nobles. I don't come on Jack to buy a book. Right. You know, you need to go someplace else. I mean, there were people who said really vicious things, like, you need to go somewhere else with this book shit. You know. But I didn't let that discourage me. But then there came a time where I started to get bored, and I felt myself starting to use the app in the way that I had used Adam for Adam previously, and like there were a couple times that I would mess around and hook up with somebody, and it was just like, okay. And so then I got to a point where I said, okay, I have to get rid of it, and I just have to let it go. So what do you think that? Have you thought about that? Do you think that you could walk away from it and never use it again, or do you feel like?
I mean, I don't know, never. Like I've walked away from it a lot of times. Sometimes it would be like a year and a half. I would be off.
Have you ever felt exhausted from it?
Yeah.
Because to me, it felt
hours. Yeah, when you're up hours and then have to go to work, and then you're back in the hotel and you're thinking like, I really need to sleep, but let me just check one more time to see who's responding. And then that turns into another.
It's an
2
obsession.
hours. Yeah.
Because going back to the guy with the dog, so when he let you out, he put the dog back up, and then he let you out, and then you got home at what time? Back to your hotel at what time?
It was like 7 something.
And you had to be to work at?
I should have been to the property around 9 o'clock, 9:30.
What time did you end up getting there?
I got there around 10:30.
Wow. All for the sake of?
That experience, which I was exhausted during the thing. It was a lot. It was a lot going on. And I felt his energy was there, and I can feel energy transfer, and just different things was happening in that moment, and it was just...
Does it feel reductive to you, like using the app, like where you feel like drained and exhausted? Because to me, it just felt like, there were times where, I would be on there for hours or days or whatever, and it never would meet anybody of substance.
Right.
Because it's not always about just being on there looking for sex. That's not always your 24-hour.
You get tired, and it could cause you to go into a depression, or go into a sadness, because you're like, God, like
it's like a
when is
a
it going?
spiral.
Like when is there anybody out there? And then you just because you put all your faith into these apps,
right?
Everything. My marriage is coming from Grindr and Jack. My next one, I want the marriage that I see on TV. I want the proposal video my friend sent to me. I want that.
And for me, I had to come off of there too, because it started to change my perspective about guys and relationships. It started to make me feel like everybody was on there just looking for sex. Everybody was on there just looking for threesomes. Everybody was on there with their relationship looking for a third wheel to come in. You know what I'm saying? Or everybody was in a relationship and they were on there cheating. Hey, what's up? I got a dude, or I got a wife, or I got a girl.
I can feel myself. Yeah.
Right. It started to change and taint.
That's why
my perception of people and relationships, my reality. So I had to get off of there just for that reason. Because it started to make me feel like I couldn't trust anybody. Like everybody was up to something low down and scandalous.
Yeah, that's where I am right now, and I'm trying not to. Because even if somebody's nice to me, I'm like, ugh, don't text me.
Right.
Like, ugh. Or like I said, people come in and they do things I would normally do. Like, hey, my name is, and I'm turning into that person like, look, let's just do this.
So why do you find yourself going back? You said you've taken, sabbaticals. Mm-hmm. Why do you end up going back? What is it that draws you back?
Maybe initially sex.
Mm-hmm.
I think sex, and then I think it's being alone.
Right. And feeling like you can find something. You'll get a different result this time.
Yeah, I'll get it'll work this time. This person is different. And then it causes you to choose some of the crazy. If you just think about this person has nothing to offer you. Or this person, you just try. Like, I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, all of my barriers are down. Mm-hmm. Before I used to be like, you have to do this, you have to do that. Now I'm just like, I literally go to the online around the world. I click on it and I just go.
What you mean around the world?
There's a section that's called around, so it's not just the people that are nearby. It's people from all over the world, literally.
Oh.
They start in like your area, and then as you keep scrolling, it's the United States, and then it just keeps going further and further away, all the way to England. And I literally just sit there and I copy the message, and it's usually like a nice message. Hey, what's up? How are you? And I copy that, and I literally go click on. I don't even look at your stats. I don't look at nothing.
And you just drop it. Drop that same message too
into everybody, and wait for the response. And usually I get a lot of responses, so I'm going through responses. And the further it gets, those are the people I weed out to like, okay, now we got another group. These are the people I'm really having a good conversation with. And then some of those turn into sex, and then some of those turn into conversations for weeks, or then I meet crazy people like the one I told you about, and so.
So, and for me, it translated to validation, because at the end of it all, I started to crave the responses. Like I said to you earlier, like I would go and meet people for dinner or for drinks, but then I couldn't wait to get back to see who had sent me a message.
Right.
It was all about the validation and that pacification in the moment, feeling pacified in the moment. Oh my God, you're so this. Oh my God, you're so that. Oh, I just want you to hold me. Ooh,
Right.
Oh, I can't believe you're single. You know what I'm saying? It was all of that instant gratification that I was craving. And so then once I was able to detach myself from that, along with figuring out why I was so drawn to these things, then I was able to, walk away.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to take. I know that, I think when it happens, it'll just happen. I don't know the steps I need to take, though, to make that happen.
Well, listen, if this is your first time listening to So Much to Say, please do me a favor, hit the subscribe or follow button. Please share this podcast with your friends, your family, and your network, your social media network. And don't forget, my fourth book, Book of Jewels, is now available. Autographed copies are available from CraigTheWriterStewart.com, or you can purchase the book through iBooks, Kindle, and Audible. Thank you for listening. Be safe. Keep loving yourself. One of the best parts of life is when you can admit the truth to yourself about yourself. Cyberspace is a world where one can become something he isn't, but everything he dares to be. I wasn't interested in getting attached to anyone, and I knew I wouldn't take anyone I met online seriously. I had multiple screen names to increase my chances of meeting someone attractive. The majority of the profiles noted HIV negative under status, but I knew better from the work I had done in the HIV community. I knew 1 out of 3 black gay men was positive. The messages I found in my inbox validated me in my depression. In some strange way, they reinforced that I was worthy and deserving. My days consisted of waking up and logging on to see how many messages had accrued overnight. Months passed before I got honest with my therapist about what was happening with me. And before I knew it, I heard myself say, I've been having sex with people I meet online. To listen to more of Words Never Spoken in Memoir, visit audible.com. I was involved briefly with a married man who believed he had the courage to leave his wife to be with me and to live his truth. This isn't the typical story of a married man promising to leave his wife for a secret lover. Rather, this is a story in part about a gay man who knew he was gay before he got married, but chose to marry a woman because he didn't know how to break free. Rocky and I met on a gay social media site 3 months after I returned to the East Coast to live, and just 11 months after he was married. At the time we met, he was living and working in Dubai as a contractor for the government on a military base, while his wife was stationed in Tallahassee, Florida, where they had a home. In one of the first messages he sent me, Rocky shared that he was married, but that he had regrets. He explained that he had come out to his mother and siblings when he was 18 years old. He sat them. To listen to more of One Thing for Certain, Two Things for Sure, a memoir continued, visit audible.com.